And we are live.
हम न चाही फालतू शिक्षा, हम न चाही कोनो परीक्षा, न तारक काजम in the कक्षा. Teachers leave them kids alone. रे मास्टर छोड़ेगा नहीं बच्चों को.
हाय, आप लोग कैसे हो? अच्छा है कि सब अच्छा है, सॉरी आशा है कि सब अच्छा है। अनकूलर्स के हाई होप्स की सीजन 2 के तीसरे एपिसोड में सबका है। इस एपिसोड में हम होम स्कूलर्स से बातचीत करेंगे। The general perception of homeschooling is there is a group of children who don't want to go to schools. Children and parents stay at home and the children is guided by their parents. A way of education in which parents take the personal and wholesome responsibility of the education of their children on their own at home. They are not able to send them to regular schools due to dissatisfaction with the educational options available, different religious or educational philosophies, and the belief that children are not progressing within the traditional school structure. In this episode, we will find out how things work from homeschoolers themselves. इसमें बच्चों को बहुत ही फ्रीडम और एक्सप्लोरेशन करने का मिलता है. Children with parents find their interests and persuaded. They get to cook, play, study, do and be whatever they like to be. है ना मजेदार कॉन्सेप्ट, लेकिन चैलेंजेस सब जगह होते हैं, यहाँ भी होती है. इस एपिसोड में हम होम स्कूलिंग से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस एंड इश्यूज को कवर करने का कोशिश करेंगे. जानेंगे कि इज इट रियली लाइक दिस.
Right. Good evening, folks. We have a stunning matchup tonight. We have fighters from all over the globe coming to compete in the Ultimate Boxing Championship. I hope. So, in the left corner, coming to you from Himachal Pradesh, weighing X over 0 pounds, Shamli Manasvi. In the right corner, coming to you from Maryland, weighing X to the power of X, where X equals 0, Khiyali, Pilallamari. And in the bottom corner, coming to you from Namma Bengaluru, weighing the function of X equals the square root of X, where the output set is any real number. Akshara. And yeah, so let's start with the first question. What's homeschooling anyway? Anybody can, it's open to anyone.
Open.
Round one, fight.
This is a hard question. I mean, basically just not going to school and doing your education at home instead, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that. And also, oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, continue.
Also, it varies for different people, right? At one end, you have homeschooling where you fully replicate school at home or wherever you are. At the other end, you have full unschooling where you let the child just live a life and don't necessarily give textbooks or tests or anything like that. And then some people are kind of somewhere in the middle. So
Yeah, I
it's
think most people
for every
fall
person.
somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Akshay, do you want to add anything?
Wait, was the question about homeschooling or unschooling?
About homeschooling. But you can also add on related terms like unschooling or open learning. Up to you.
Yeah, but just what she said, that is basically it. Just a different type of education that's a bit more, at least in my case, a lot more to do with solitude than it is to do with a societal or a social structure.
Right. So, what made your parents come to this decision to not send you all to mainstream schools? Or if the decision was a collective one, then how did? Yeah, go ahead.
Khiyali, do you want to start?
Sure. So, I can't speak for my parents, but they didn't put me in school immediately, and then they would, once in a while they would say, "Do you want to go to school next year?" And I would think, I'd say no. And then, "Hey, do you want to go to school next year?" No, I like what I'm doing now. It's fine. Finally, I said yes when it was high school. So then I went to high school in a mainstream type school. But yeah, I don't know exactly what made them decide originally. I think they wanted to make sure that I could have kind of creative freedom instead of just being given instructions and told what to do.
I think for me, when I came of age to go to school, my parents looked down at the schools and they thought that the way they wanted me to learn didn't really match with the way learning happened in schools. So they thought it's not necessary. So I stayed at home. We went to the school. As a family, all three of us would go in the afternoon and just spend time with the kids. They started a library in the school, but I didn't go to study there. So I think, yeah. Akshu?
I was sent to school 1 year late because I'm a September born, which I never understood. But I've been to school till my 4th standard, where my mom pulled me out right before my midterm exams. So good on you, Mom. But what made her do it was mostly because I was getting really stressed about one, not really having any friends and not knowing how to connect to people, because that is something that I had such a huge problem with then, where it was just really hard to be able to fit in with anything and to find something to fit in and to, more than anything, just understand people. So struggling with that, and that adding on to this standard that I had set for myself of you need to pass, you need to like get with flying colors and always get praise, that kind of really took a toll on my mental health. And so my mom decided that no, this is not happening. So she just pulled me out.
Nice.
I rebelled hard, but we'll get to that later.
Right. Sure. And like, how did the extended family deal with it? Was there any issue? How did your family deal with the extended family, if there was an issue? If you're like comfortable sharing this on YouTube. Yeah, go ahead.
Funnily enough, almost everyone from my extended family was completely okay with it. Like my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, my granddad was the hugest supporter of this. The minute my mother even suggested this, he was like, yes, we're doing this. She's a genius. She's fine. She will get it all done and she's going to be spectacular. And then this was the funniest part of the whole story, because everyone around me was like so excited about this idea. And I was like, no, I want to go to school. I have a routine there. I have friends there.
Oh.
No, I'm staying in school. Unfortunately, I didn't get to. But now I'm happy about it. My aunts and uncles were a little skeptical, where they were like, would you be able to, or wouldn't she experience different problems because of it? But now that they've seen how I'm doing and how I'm doing much better and happier, they're more okay with it. And a couple of my aunts are actually even thinking about it for their kids. And they're like, this actually sounds cool.
Cool.
I think for me, my extended family is not that big part of my daily life. So they didn't really have much an opinion on this. They were like, yeah, I'm sure they know what they're doing.
Nice.
Like, do you people ever suffer from fear of missing out when you're not going to schools? Like, okay, homeschooling is happening and you're happy, but there can be phases now, because in school you get to socialize a lot. So yes, there is solitude and peace, a different type of peace at home. But has it ever occurred, like missing out? Oh, am I missing regular education, so-called regular education, and that I need to go out and socialize a little more? And in such lows, how do you deal with this type of circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that definitely does happen. Because if I'm not at school, I feel like I'm missing out on things that happen in school, such as peer stuff. You have friends, you have a lot of people there. But if I were in school, I would be missing out on a lot of things that I'm doing as a homeschooler. So I think no matter what you choose, you'll miss out on something. And I choose to miss out on these things by being a homeschooler. But definitely having peer learning and that many friends, I think, is something I definitely missed out, which is why I was very excited about college. And now I'm in college, and that's like something that's a really big part for me, because it's amazing.
Nice.
All the time, but it makes me feel better to know that like Shamli said, there's opportunities that I have right now that I would have missed out on school if I went to school. Like, for one, the amount of in-depth I do, and when it comes to like reading and writing and understanding poetry, the way I consume it, and how necessary it was that it needed to be shaped in a way away from school, where it was something that I built a relationship with on my own, and how my learning has grown and helped me be aware of a lot of things now. So if I was in school, I know for a fact a lot of things would be hard for me, where I wouldn't be able to grow as much. But yeah, I do experience like feeling missing out and stuff, but I have people around me who I care about and who care about me, and because of that, I'm pretty okay with it.
To add my experience, I never really felt like I was missing out on school. I had a lot of friends through other circles, India homeschoolers, neighborhood, my parents' work. I had a lot of friends through other circles, and ultimately, by the time I felt like, oh, I want to see what goes on in schools, I want to meet more variety of people, at that point, I did go to school in order to do that, in order to get the opportunities at school. But now I feel like I'm missing out on the homeschool world, which is why I was really happy to be invited to this. I was, oh wow, someone still remembers me. I'm still part of the India homeschooling family. So now I have the opposite fear of missing out, as Akshara and Shamli mentioned. Either way, you miss out on something. And with homeschooling, like, you can kind of just it's nicer if you can kind of decide what to miss out on, I think. That's my opinion, at least.
I'm very bad with terminologies, like I always get not confused, but if you people would tell me about major differences between unschooling and deschooling.
I don't think I've ever heard deschooling.
Never heard deschooling. You mean unschooling and homeschooling?
Oh.
No, I have heard of it. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, actually, I've just heard the name. I have no idea about the definition. I was just going to pull something out of. So continue.
So yeah, I think Khiyali sort of defined unschooling earlier. Deschooling, I think, is the process of like, I think there's the theory of sort of school traditional affecting our minds and our behavior in a certain way. And
Okay.
deschooling ourselves, which can happen during childhood or adulthood, is basically to sort of break those, the conditioning and the indoctrination that happens during school.
Okay. So like, okay, for I went. I don't know where I should put myself. Like I was born and brought up in Bhutan, so there I did regular schooling till 10th. But when I came to India, I was not able to study in regular schools. So uh, I enrolled with NIOS, National Institute of Open Schooling, and just gave the exams and stayed in a space. But I was free, like I moved around, I did my traveling. So what type of schooling or learning will this type of schooling learning fall into?
I
What is
would
it?
call that homeschooling. It's more of like you're still doing exams and stuff, but you're just at home or wherever
Right.
you are.
Okay.
Yeah, I think most of my friends did their exams through NIOS as well.
Right.
I mean, I think you can give like occasional exams and still be mostly an unschooler if the rest of your
True.
life is not influenced fully by those exams. Like if you spend the
True.
whole year preparing for the exams, then yeah, that's more
I think
towards
homeschooling
but
is
there's still
basically-
wiggle room based on what you want.
Yeah, I think homeschooling is like bringing the school at home, and then
Right.
unschooling is just having nothing to do with school or the
Yeah.
likes at all.
Kind of in
It's
between.
just a spectrum.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure like half of the audience who doesn't like to talk about terminology has gotten bored. So moving beyond. Yeah, so I think that a lot of people have, even if they haven't met any homeschoolers, kind of have an image about what it might be like and what not going to school might be like. But when we, create images that aren't based on any observations or, then those images tend to not reflect reality. So to sort of make that image closer to reality, let's talk about what the learning process is actually like, right? Like, what has been the role of structure, routine, and plan teaching in your learning processes?
I had some textbooks and workbooks that we just selected just based on what looked good. And I would think, okay, every day I'm going to do a page of this or a section of this. Sometimes I would do it, sometimes I would not do it. I didn't have tests. Like when I got to school, I asked them how to fill in the test marking sheet because I hadn't really done that before. And I had people were talking about exams, right? I had we had to go and report to once or twice a year in Maryland, who would just ensure that I was actually learning. But that wasn't, huge influence. That would just be like, okay, we have to go there soon, do some more worksheets so we have some paper to show. So there was a little bit of that.
I think for me, structure does play a very important role, but not in all aspects. Because being a homeschooler, you don't really have consequences to anything. If I decide that I want to do, for example, I want to draw something, I want to write something, I want to read something, if I don't do it, literally nothing will happen. Nobody's going to be mad at me. There are no consequences, no grade. Literally nothing happens. So commitment, not in studies, not just in studies, but in absolutely everything. Commitment is something that doesn't come from an external source. You have to make it come from within you because there is no external source. So what that does is it takes a longer time to develop that, but I think I have developed it in a very strong way, that the commitment is always inside me. I don't need an external source to tell me to do something for me to want to do it.
Funnily enough, I'm sort of in the transitional space of building into a structure because last 6 years of homeschooling that I've had. I mean, unschooling, homeschooling, whatever. Completely unstructured. Like some days I thought I was going to do my 10th exams, and then I just decided not to. So I'd study some days, and then I'd spend months together just not looking at the books, not thinking about them. But and now that I've sort of curated couple books or just like activities to keep me learning and to ideate and stuff, now a structure is slowly coming in, and my own willpower to do something is also coming in, like, with a lot more force, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
And what has been the role of unstructured, spontaneous, free learning in your journeys?
A lot of good. I mean, okay, when my mom first decided to unschool me and she took me out, I spent, I kid you not, 8 months in front of my TV. Just because she told me, you're staying home, you can do whatever you want. Just you're staying home, no school. And I nodded at her very seriously. I was like, okay, you're going to teach me from home. Okay. But for 8 months, every time she tried to approach the topic of any kind of learning, I'd be like, no, I'm watching TV. So I would eat, sleep, and just do everything in front of the TV. And that sort of not really helped in my relationship with my mom, that ability to be free and the sight that she trusted me so much, that helped me realize that me not doing something or not having traditional accomplishments is not the end of the world. So it really helped my confidence, and I mean, also it got me into writing, and which is something I want to do for the rest of my life. So
Nice.
Wait, how did it get you into writing?
I didn't hear that.
How did it get you into writing, out of curiosity?
So after the 8 months, my mom asked me. So my mom didn't ask me. What am I saying? I asked her. I go up to my mom, and after 8 months, I'm like, so what am I going to do with my life now? At age 11, I go and I ask her, how am I going to make money when I'm older? So she and I, at the beginning of the year, she and I drew up a list of careers or professions that I could try out that seem interesting to me. And writing was not on them, but I had this friend who was attending a creative writing workshop, and she was into writing. And my mom just said, okay, well, she needs company, your friend needs company, so you're gonna go with me. And I was like, okay, I have nothing else to do. And I went there, and during the workshop, I realized I really like writing. I like coming up with stories. I like talking about stories, hearing about stories. And it just really makes me feel good, and inspires me. And it struck me a lot more than any of the professions I had on the list, like eco-friendly architect, dog trainer, veterinarian, and librarian, and a bunch more. So, yes.
Cool. Anybody else wants to answer the same question? What is the role of unstructured, spontaneous, and free learning in your journeys?
I think that is a hard question to answer, because that teaches you things in a way that you aren't really aware of it. Because structured learning, you know what you're learning. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there is unstructured learning happening while you have a structure as well, but those things are hard to sort of pinpoint. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure it plays a huge role because that's like one of the major differences between homeschooling and going to school, the unstructured part. So, but it's hard to put a finger on it, I would say.
Right. The term for the learning that happens, which you're not intending on, I think is called collateral learning.
Oh.
Just to bore the audience again.
So about unstructured learning, the number one question that I used to get when people found out I was homeschooled was, what do you do all day? And what do you mean, what do I do all day? What does an adult do all day? Like I live, this is what I do. And one of the main things that I did was reading. So I read so many books, so many fiction books, so many like popular science, popular history books, horrible histories, horrible science, murderous maths. And if I had been told to read these books in a school, I don't think I would have liked them as much, just because someone was telling me to do it. I'm like that. And so I think the unstructured thing kind of made me like enjoy whatever I was doing more, and then I would automatically learn from what I was doing. I would read a book, I would learn something. I would play with some earthworms, I would learn something. I would have a conversation with one of my parents about science or history, and I would learn something from that. Or I would, I don't know, like Shamli said, it's a bit harder to pinpoint than structured learning, but it's still very valuable.
Right. And if you'll have any questions for each other in the middle, you can also, feel free to ask. So I'm wondering, like, what was the experience like transitioning from childhood years to teenage? Like, was there a shift in the need for structured learning, or did how homeschooling felt for you when you were a child and then a teenager feel different in any way? No?
I think when I was younger, the structure or whatever little bit of structure that I had or tried to have came from didn't come from my parents, but was more, they suggested many things. They would give me ideas, you can do this, you can do that, how about you try out this. It was more like there were a lot of things coming to them, ideas coming to them. But as I grew up, that sort of came into my hands. I started finding things that, oh, now I want to try that. I want to try that. I want to learn this. I want to read this. So I think the idea center shifted to me. I think that is one of the biggest changes that happened, I would say.
Right.
I think one of the biggest changes that happened for me was that I had started learning more than like my parents could easily help me with. And I kind of started needing more resources. Like I wanted a drama club, for instance. I like drama, I like theater. So I wanted a drama club. These are factors that contributed to me going to school. By that time, I was also kind of exploring like my LGBT identity in that community, and I wanted to go to school in order to try to find more people who shared this identity so I could learn more, because I was very interested in that, and then also just like more people who were different from me, because with homeschooling, I spent a lot of time around other homeschoolers, which is great, but then I wanted to learn like about more, I used to say a representative slice of the population. Though the very strange thing about that was that they were all teenagers. I had never been around a slice of people who was just my age before. That was strange, but anyway. So yeah, I think I started wanting kind of more resources by that point, or more different resources, I guess. I had resources for sure, but just kind of different ones.
I was 10 when my parents took me out of school, so I had just sort of gotten used to the idea of having friends, and the lack of friends then was hitting me. So coming out of school was both not really fun in that regard, but also helpful for like long term. How it changed, I'm not really sure. I never paid attention to that, and I can't think of anything.
Right. So what are you guys up to now? Like, and if you'll have any plans for the future, like tentative plans or whatever, what are you thinking of doing?
I am currently in college. I started college a few weeks ago. I'm in Khiyali University, which is a liberal arts and sciences university. And that is my plan for the next 3 years at least. I am hoping these 3 years will give me an idea of what I want to do next. I assume I would want to probably do a master's somewhere, but I think that's as far as I have planned so far. I really haven't planned.
I'm also currently in college. So I'm in fact not in Maryland. I'm in North Carolina at Duke.
Oh,
And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I'm usually in Maryland. But yeah, that's my plan for the next 4 years. I don't know what's going to happen after that. I have some plans, but there are so many, I don't know which one will happen, or probably something else will happen. Who knows?
okay. I think Akshara has dropped out, probably due to internet. Anyway, yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, she's back.
She's back.
Yay.
Hi. Yeah, I think her internet is pretty slow.
My net is awful. So.
Yeah, we can hear that.
Yeah, your voice is breaking and your video is paused.
Hello? Yeah, I think it's back now.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Do you have any future plans?
Me? Honestly, none. No. No college I've seen so far has anything that's interesting me right now. And without college, I don't really have the plan of doing my 10th or anything, because I don't want to do my NIOS unless I have to, or it will lead to something. So what's my plan in 4 years? I guess just write and publish, and I don't know, keep trying to be a better person.
Nice. And throughout your unschooling journeys, like what has worked for you? What, has not worked for you? I think we've already heard mentioned sometimes the lack of friends.
So the question is, what has worked and what has not worked, right?
Yeah. What elements of homeschooling you think has been helpful or useful? Yeah.
Or maybe like the challenges of homeschooling, ups and downs of homeschooling. Yeah.
Sure.
So no challenges are immediately coming to mind.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we will move on from this question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question, right? Like, why is it homeschooling in specific and not schools that share the same sort of beliefs and values that you have as homeschools, like schools which practice open learning, for example?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question, I think.
Right. So like, What I'm trying to ask is, why homeschooling, right, and not schools that share the same beliefs and values? Like, why all homeschoolers and not schoolgoers of such schools that share the same beliefs and values as you?
Oh,
You know,
okay.
schools which practice of open learning, that the kind of learning styles which you all are comfortable with at home. Why not find schools that have the same, learning process?
I would say, I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere and there aren't such schools over here. So that is probably one major reason. Otherwise, I wouldn't really know because I never went to school, so I was this big when we decided that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's mainly because we live in a place where there aren't any schools like that.
Right.
That didn't really come to mind.
I know we considered going to a school like that a little bit, but we also traveled a lot, and that was very valuable to me. And if I had to go to a school, that would be drastically reduced, and didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to move somewhere where they had such a school, because that would have required probably moving, I think. And I mean, it is still a school, right? Like, I can't say, I've never been to any of those. So I think it's partially just the location that wouldn't have been practical.
Right.
For me, because I didn't leave school because like the studies was hard or anything, and I enjoyed my subjects and learning and my tests and everything. I left school because it was more of a social thing. I wasn't sure how to interact with my peers. I couldn't understand them because of my autism. And so with that disconnect that was worsening because of school, more than progressing and being better, I needed to come out. So even if we did it in an open school, I would still have had trouble with my peers and understanding how like social rules or just certain things are done, how people speak and why they say things the way they say things. So that's why.
Right. Interesting. We have 3 completely different reasons. And yeah. So is there any aspect of which you feel of homeschooling which you think homeschoolers should be a bit wary about, that they should look out for?
You mean other homeschoolers?
It will be hard.
Anybody, maybe you have also had to, any aspect of homeschooling which you've had to take care of, and
For other homeschool. Sorry, I didn't understand the question. I got it now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Akshara.
More that it will be hard to sort of develop that inner motivation and that drive. So yeah, it'll take a lot of time, effort, and like more than just general effort, constant effort, because school is an external force that pushes you forward and keeps you doing things. There are consequences. And since, like Shamli said, there are no consequences for not doing anything in homeschooling, it will be pretty hard. But honestly, I feel like if you go through that hardness and you develop that through that, it will also strengthen a lot. So, which might even be even better. I don't know. Just make sure you know that.
Right.
My advice is kind of centers on freedom. So for the family or the parents or whoever, kind of trust that the child will do the things that they want to do. Kind of don't panic if your relatives say or your friends say, "What? How can you do that? How could you? What? How?" But also kind of to the parent, to the child and the family, like also like might sound a bit strange, but also understand that school does work for some people. And, you know, if you want to try out school, like that's fine. It's not like homeschooling is better, or unschooling is better, or school is better. Just different things work for different people. So you try something, if it doesn't work, you try something else, you know, just give yourself the freedom to explore. Like it's okay. You can do that. And if the child doesn't want to do it something a certain way, whether that's they don't want to unschool, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to homeschool, like change it if it's not working.
Are there any other sort of common misconceptions with or beliefs which you feel that many homeschoolers share?
You mean homeschoolers have misconceptions about others, or others have misconceptions about homeschoolers?
Which homeschoolers have about life in general?
Oh,
I mean, like for an example, I have noticed that not only homeschoolers, but people who like homeschooling, even if they've gone to school and they grew up and they realized, oh, I would have liked to homeschool, and sort of like homeschooling, they tend to have, you know, I mean, not talking about everybody, but some people who I met have a huge bias against schools and like colleges and institutionalized learning.
Yeah, I definitely, I used to have a very negative opinion of school, which I think was influenced by me. I'm not going to entirely blame this on the media, but me reading a lot of books where the kids were in school and they would not want to go to school, or they would be very excited for the summer vacation to not be in school. So I thought that school was a terrible place. And then I said this, and one of my friends said, no, I like school. And so then I learned something. That it's not just a terrible place. I mean, yeah, there are good things and bad things like anything else, and for different people it's just different. So, but I agree with you, Neon, that that's a bit of a misconception.
Any other things that come to mind on the same topic? No?
Nothing that's really coming to mind quite yet.
Okay. Any common misconception which people who go to mainstream schools share?
People, okay, like I said, first question people used to say was, what do you do all day? So they think that you're not doing anything. And like, what do you mean by not doing anything? Like, if you exist, you're doing something, right? Even if you do sit in front of the TV for 8 months, you're still doing something. You're it's not like you're not doing anything. So like nobody, I mean, when retirees talk about how much like what the things they do and how much they learn and do once they're retired, nobody says, oh, you're not doing anything, you should do something. So like whatever you're doing, you can get something out of it. Nothing is truly a waste of time, is apparently what my grandfather used to say. And so I invoke grandfatherly wisdom for this. So, but that's one thing, that people are always doing something and always learning no matter what. And the other thing, the other one was that that homeschooling automatically means you don't have any friends. It's just a different environment. They'll be different for different people, just like in school will be different for different people.
In fact, I think homeschoolers have a very different idea of friends, because at school, you make friends that are your age. Most of your friends are your age. But as a homeschooler, there is no boundary, no limitation to making friends. I have friends that are really old. I have friends that are really small. There's a whole range. There is no set type of or age or anything of the friends that I have.
Yeah.
So I would say, I mean, it's a very different experience, but it's not better or worse or anything.
I think sort of having the best of both worlds of having a peer group that is sort of your own age, but at the same time being able to have friends who are older and younger is
Yeah.
like, for me, works. Anyway, now that, since the pandemic hit, a lot of people have been, schooling from home, like without their own choice. So is that,
Yeah.
does it make sense to also call that homeschooling, or should that be called like distance learning? Does it fall under the same category?
I mean, depends how you're really doing it. What level of freedom do the students have to choose things and do what they want to do?
Right.
Akshu, do you want to add anything to me?
I mean, it's not like you can put a term on something and it can just be just one thing forever, right? Because before the pandemic, most of us would just say like homeschooling because you're learning from home. And now that most people are learning from home, now it's changing it up, even though it like technically is homeschooling.
Right.
But yeah, what Shamli said made sense too, because it depends on how you go about learning, because homeschooling was about like sort of bringing in for some people it's about bringing in a different structure of learning altogether for their kids or for themselves. So I'm not really sure about all the terminology and the labels, because things are really fluid, so trying to hold on to something to mean one thing forever, or trying to give words to everything possible so that everything can in some way, shape or form be one thing forever, to me that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Am I making sense right now?
Yeah, I think
Yes, absolutely.
is what you're trying to say, that that when we define something, those definitions have to change, and it might not, describe things perfectly forever, Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Is Khiyali's video stuck just for me?
Yeah, just for you. She's moving side to side like this.
Oh, okay. Okay, now.
So I've sort of run out of questions. Is there anything that you guys want to...
do them pretty quickly then.
I thought these will be too many questions, like if all three of you guys answer. Anyway, yeah. I think it's also good that we run out of questions now. It'll be a bit more spontaneous and in the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Except
What
now we
made
have
you
to
guys want to go to college?
That's a good question. Shamli, you want to go first or should I?
Okay, so for me, one was that peer learning, because I've always done all my learning on my own. I do have friends, but for my studies and academic stuff, I do that all on my own. And I do enjoy academics. And I don't know, just the idea of an institution of education seems pretty cool if it's executed in a nice way. And I found colleges that still have that aspect of freedom and sort of match with the way I am learning so far. I found colleges like that and I even got in. So I think sort of because I found what I was looking for is kind of nice. What about you, Kelly?
In my case, I was kind of always going to go to college because, I mean, for one thing, my mom really loved college, and so she would always talk about how, it's the best time of her life, and she liked it so much. So I thought, okay, so best time of your life, all right, sign me up. Sounds good. And so that was kind of always in the plan. And I think college learning, what I've seen of it in my like 2 weeks so far, is a lot more suited to me because it's a lot of reading. And like I mentioned before, I read a lot. It's a lot of reading, and it's not so, and kind of lectures, and it's not so much work for the sake of work or practice. Like there's no busy work that you might find in a school where they just say, okay, you kids need to do something, here you go. And I guess there's an opportunity for a more individualized thing, because in college, you're the customer, right? You pick your classes, you go to the lectures. If you don't go to the lectures, it's only you who miss out. So it's kind of, you don't trigger this like disciplinary process that happens in high school, or at least in my high school, that would have happened if I was late to anything. And that did in fact happen. But it's more individualized. It feels more suited to me, like kind of like Shamli said so far. And then I already kind of talked about my decision to go to high school. So.
I think I would agree on that part where you, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there was also a bit of a question. So I don't know how many viewers are in the US or familiar with the US system, but so grades 9 through 10 are high school, and then 6, 7, and 8 are middle school usually. And so there was some question of, oh, Khiyali, do you want to go to 8th standard or 8th grade? Because if you go to 8th grade, that'll help you transition to high school. I said, no, what do you mean? I'm not going to go from homeschooling to 8th grade and then 8th grade to high school. That's 2 skips. I'm just going to go to high school. So that's what I did. I guess theoretically just homeschooling to college would have been only 1 skip, and I don't know if that was easier or not than
I mean, yeah, it worked out fine for me so far. I don't feel like I am lacking anything as compared to the other students.
Yeah.
And yeah, what you said about your mom telling you about college, I think with most adults, if you talk to them and they tell you stories, there are always stories from college. Oh, we did this, oh, we did that. There are always stories from college. I mean, it really does sound like the time of your life. So who wouldn't want to go there? Unfortunately, it's online so far, so I have not experienced those things. But let's see, hopefully soon.
What's the name of it again?
My college?
Yeah.
Khiyali University.
Khiyali. Where is it?
It's in Chennai. It's very similar to Ashoka, but it's even newer.
Yeah, and with college also, since a lot of times people move anyway, the issue of finding a school that you like is maybe a bit, I guess it's still tricky. So. Yeah, no, it's still tricky because there are so many factors that go into where, like if you are going to go to college, that go into where you go. I was going to say maybe it's easier to find a place that aligns with your ideas, but not necessarily.
I mean, you may find the place, but the place might not find you quite as interesting. I don't know.
Somebody was wondering whether they should go to college or not. How should they decide?
That's a good question. We were talking earlier about how whatever you do, you'll miss out on something. So maybe try to see what's more valuable to you, college or the things you would do without college.
Right.
Because, either way is fine, right? It's not like you have to go to college. If you want to go, you go. If going to college would make you miserable and you would hate every second of it, don't go to college. I mean, unless there's some other big reason you want to go, which there might be.
Everyone sort of talks about the whole experience of college and the whole peer thing, but one, I've completely not understood it because I mean, not only have I not experienced it in any way, but also it is a very social thing. And I mean, I have friends now. I do know how to interact, more or less. I'm not completely an alien in every situation. So college to me has always been, even when my parents would try to tell me about the whole experience of it, how you get to meet like-minded people and also people with different perspectives, you grow as a person, and all the things that they say. Even though they said that, college in my head has set in as a place for learning, and that's the only thing that would make it worth it for me. Like, I'm okay staying at home for the rest of my life. I'm okay being the Indian Emily Dickinson. But I don't know. That was actually a good question of how do you go about choosing a college, because my father wants me to go to one, but I've never found one yet, at least, that excites me.
It's all right.
Sorry, my puppy was hacking. But yeah, I'm not sure why I said that, but anyways.
Sure.
Neom, can you talk about your experience with schooling or
I
learning?
was going to ask that, yeah.
Sure.
Homeschooling.
Mm, my experience with unschooling. I have to ask a more specific question. It's a very huge experience. What about the experience?
Gosh. First, okay, we'll start with what you started with for us. What word would you use to describe it, or what words?
I think I like the idea of having homeschooling as an umbrella term, and within that, unschooling is one kind of homeschooling. And the thing is that there is a little bit of the aspect of identification, right? There are homeschoolers, which I would consider unschoolers the way that they are doing it, but they'd rather call themselves homeschoolers and not unschoolers. Whereas some people choose to identify as unschoolers. And even if, like somebody who had gone to a traditional school and had been schooled, and then when they grow up, they decide that they want to be an unschooler, right? That's totally fine, like, according to me, that there shouldn't be sort of a requirement to be a homeschooler or an unschooler. But yeah.
Where did it start from? Your journey, so to speak.
All right. So it actually started from my mother. So she was a teacher in many different schools. And during that time, she decided that schools weren't, the best place for children to be. And so she just, my eldest sister, when she was born, she decided, I'm not going to send her to school. Then my brother was born, and she continued. And I think initially she was more into kind of homeschooling, teaching them how to read and write and stuff. But progressively with each child, it became harder and harder. And also she realized that, again, her sort of making us learn things was making us less interested. And when we learned things on our own, it was, better for us. So she slowly took, a backseat. And I also had a very long phase from when I was around 5 to 11, where I just played video games like throughout the day. So yeah, somebody try and beat that record. And when I was around 11, that's the time that I decided that I wanted to pursue football. So then slowly, it, video games phased out and football phased in. And that's when I really started to, make friends who were my age and socialize and stuff. And that's where sort of structure and routine kind of kicked in, because before I would like be awake all night, sleep sometimes in the day, sometimes not sleep at all, eat mostly junk food, sometimes not eat at all. But then when I had that sense of purpose, now there's a reason to sort of sleep on time and eat properly and drink water. Then sort of when I was 13, I got selected for Pune Football Club. And because I had this idea in my head that I wanted to become a professional footballer, that seemed like the best route. However, I really hated it because my teammates weren't very nice to me. Not just because I was an unschooler, but they, weren't very nice to each other either. A lot of bullying and beating each other up and stuff. And so I went through 3 years of that. And the latter 2 years, I also had a coach, which was, verbally abusive and like, used to put a lot of pressure on us and stuff. And I think more than that, it was just the amount of pressure that I put on myself. Like it was either this or nothing. Either I would make it as a professional footballer or like this. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. That was the only sort of purpose my life had. And that kind of pressure made me sort of perform worse and worse with each day, right? Like I had this idea that if I just keep on training and I just push myself and get back on the field every day, then I'll just have to get better and better, right? Like that's how it works. But I didn't realize that it's not just about the amount of hours you put in, it's about how much you love the sport also. And the love for the sport was, just going down and down and down. And so I kept getting worse and worse and worse towards the end. And yeah, when I was around 16, I hit my breaking point and I quit. And I think that was the hardest period for me because I had no sense of purpose or direction. And, it was either become a professional footballer or nothing. And, that's where I was, where my need to breathe, my need to sleep, my need to, eat was all because of football. And now there's no reason to. Also, the feeling of, not belonging in a social community was very difficult because of the way I was treated by my peers. So it was obviously also quite difficult for my mother to see me in this phase. And so she suggested a place called Swaraj because I had met some of the students from there earlier and I liked them. I liked conversing with them. I felt that they were sort of just, nice people and they were curious about the world, constantly asking questions. And that was the kind of social group I liked. So I went for the orientation and I didn't really, have an expectation of joining. I just wanted to see the place and what it was like. But there I sort of felt acceptance from the community and the other prospective students. And I think that feeling of acceptance after the previous social group I had was quite overwhelming. And so I decided to join. And so, I was there for 2 years. Then afterwards, I decided that I wanted to sort of, I was dissatisfied with the way that we, play games and sports and just have sort of one way of playing it. Like, let's explore all the ways of playing it that we can. So I thought of a concept called Let's Play, where we, do exactly that, explore games and try and not just, through changing our preconceived notions about games, we can also change our preconceived notions about society and how that works. So I sort of designed a workshop and I prototyped it and I realized that I'm really bad at facilitating workshops. I had no experience dealing with children. And sort of during that time, I visited a preschool called the Atelier in Bangalore. And I really liked it. I found that the reason I asked you all the question why homeschooling and not a school which shares the same values is because that school was kind of like a school which valued unschooling, right? Like immediately just observing the way the teachers and the children interacted with each other, I was, able to understand what they value. And I told them that, this is what I observed. These are your values. And they're like, yeah, like you got it. Like most people don't just automatically know what our values are from seeing us interacting with. So I worked there for 2 years, and it was really an amazing experience. And again, towards the end of the 2 years, I think, waking up in the morning every day and, doing the 8 to 4, I think it is in the school. And that sort of thing became very difficult for me. I had only initially planned for staying for 1 year in the beginning anyway, but I liked it so much I stayed for an extra year. And yeah, now I'm again doing nothing, as people would say.
But you aren't actually doing nothing.
I mean, I'm here, I'm doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing the story of your unschooling journey.
Thanks for asking.
This does explain why you were so good at football when you came and visited me.
Yeah.
All my friends
you
were
didn't
very
know.
impressed. I didn't know about this. Or if I did, I forgot.
Right. Cool. Yeah.
What Neom said also did inspire a question. What do you guys feel was like a pivotal moment in your unschooling journey? Because this is a vague question, to sort of understanding yourself more, say, or just generally your journey in life. Just yeah.
I think one of the pivotal kind of I can't decide which one to talk about. Okay, Shamli, do you have an answer?
I'm still thinking. This is a hard question. Akshay, do you want to start us off?
Akshara, Shamli is asking you if you want to start by answering your own question.
Yes. Sorry, my net is horrible, so if I take some time, that's only why. Sort of 2 times, and one of them being when I had a conversation with an unschooler called Satyendra, who's in Bangalore, and we were talking about writing, and he started telling me about poetry. And at the time, to me, poetry was like a very set thing of like, oh, it's basically a song without the music. And so it has to rhyme, it has specific rules and stuff. So to me, because of the phase I was going through where any and every structure seemed daunting and felt like a bar that I could not reach and that I didn't want to, because I was so afraid of disappointing everyone and specifically myself, I stayed away from that. But in this conversation, he told me about how poetry is this it's a really free thing, and it's a complete expression of your emotions, your ideas. And he also told me how fleeting, for lack of a better word, it can be. Like, you can write something down and throw it away or burn it, and that's just how it can live. Like, there is no expectation of fulfillment when it comes to poetry. And somehow that not only shaped how I interact with my writing and my just stories, but also in a way how I interact with life. Because I started to see how not meaningless, but also how life can be both, how every action of yours can be so meaningful and also meaningless. Like if I make myself a glass of something to drink today, it will make my day better. It'll make me feel better. It'll give me something to do. But day after tomorrow, a week later, I wouldn't have remembered it. And how a lot of actions, they are like this. In the end, nothing lasts, so there's nothing to lose. And but also how while something lasts, it will inevitably affect. And good or bad, that's just up to how it's impacted or how it's been impacted or anything.
Right.
So yeah, that was one thing that I just sort of held with me forever. And another thing is sort of my entire 16 years, which is literally just last year, because today is my first day of being 17.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
happy birthday.
Thank you. And this is the first year that I have experienced where I have liked myself, where I've enjoyed being myself and enjoyed doing the things I've done and the person I want to be and just everything, where the world hasn't felt like it's crushing me or I need to crumble under it or I need to escape. And I'm not sure what was the pivotal moment in that happening. I don't know if it was the really amazing friends that I got behind me or my relationship with my mom getting, I mean, it was never worse to begin with, but sort of better and just improved and progressed in a positive way. So yeah, just 16 kind of feels like it's sort of going in a good way forward, and it brought me to the conclusion of I'm good, I'm okay, and I'll continue to be good and okay, and life's gonna be awesome, because life is inherently awesome. So yeah.
That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
You're a poet. I mean, you said that, but now I know it.
That means so much. Thank you.
I will not be able to match that, but I can follow up with some of the with my own answer to that. So I think academically, one thing that happened was I did an online, funnily enough, I did an online class called Paradox and Infinity that was about math and philosophy. And that got me very, very interested in math and philosophy. So that was fascinating. It introduced me to a lot more aspects of math, like, you know, what is infinity? How many types of infinity are there? What can we say about these different types of infinity? And then, like, if you have this situation, like there were these paradoxes where you had an infinite number of people and each person behaved rationally, but then as a whole they lost. And so I think I was a lot more interested in the logical aspects than kind of wider philosophical implications, but it was just very, it was like a fun brain teaser, the whole thing. It was very, very interesting. And that did lead to a longer interest in that field. And then the other really pivotal moment that I would say is I read like the Percy Jackson series. Anybody else has read this series? And, right. so I've read the Percy Jackson series, and at one point there's this very dramatic scene. I love drama because acting. I like drama a little bit too much. But there's this very dramatic scene where we find out that one of the characters is gay. And this got me suddenly just very, very interested in all these concepts. Like I hadn't thought about it very much before. Oh my gosh, you can be like this, you can be like that. This is so interesting. There's all these people in history were like that too. I never knew that. Why didn't I know that? So I started that got me quite interested in history, which was somewhat new. So there's a civil rights movement. I didn't know about this. And so that definitely got me into learning about that a lot more. That was nice.
Before we close, we have a question from a viewer. This is the first time this season we've got a question from a viewer. It's from Aravinda.
Okay, Mom.
Have you ever heard homeschool parents talk about homeschooling? How do you find their perspective? What do you think they understand well, or or they miss?
You mean parents that have been homeschooled in their childhood?
No, I think homeschool parents would be parents who homeschool their children. I mean, they could also.
Okay, wait. Okay, can you repeat the question then?
Have you ever heard homeschool parents talk about homeschooling? How do you find their perspective? What do you think they understand well, or they miss or not understand well?
I would say I think they understand that it's going to be okay. It's not going to school is not the end of the world, because when people find out that I'm homeschooling, they can't even imagine how that happens, because when you get set in one structure, when you think that you're born, you have preschool, and then you go to school, they think that is the only way and there is no other option. So I think for homeschool parents, that is a very comfortable thing. You do whatever you want, however you want. So then it's not just in that aspect, even in other aspects, they are very comfortable with not doing things the set way, and trying out things and not worrying about that, oh my God, this might just be the end of the world.
Yeah, I think Shamli said it perfectly. Yeah. I mean, you do hear while people are talking, and you hear your parents responding to them, and even later on when your parents are talking on their own, you do hear different, just these subtle differences in how they go about it and how they see homeschooling and unschooling, and how they see their children, how they see that progressing and things. I'm sorry, I completely lost the point I was trying to make.
That's it.
Yeah, just the main baseline of this, though, like Shamli said, was that there is a certain amount of trust and faith that they have in their child, or at least how much more they try to have in their child, more than some mainstream parents. So yeah, I think parents have it figured out pretty well.
Yeah, I think a large part of parents talking about homeschooling and unschooling, I think every homeschooling and unschooling parent has an arsenal of arguments to make to anyone who questions what they do. So a large part of talking is kind of responding to, bewildered people who haven't heard of it before, or people who have heard of it before and want to learn more, which is great. And so I think that's a large part of it. And actually, did you say that they kind of talk differently to outside parents and differently within themselves? Did I understand you correctly?
No, I kind of messed up the
Okay.
point I was trying to make, and I was just saying
No,
how
I think I didn't understand correctly.
it's okay. Neither did I. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah. What Shamli and Akshara said.
All right. So if nobody has any more questions, I think we'll close here. I definitely had a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Yes.
And
This was wonderful. Thank you for having us.
That's great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Neil. Good to talk with you, Shamli and Akshara.
Yeah, you both too.
all right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I actually had a lot more fun than I was expecting to. Bye.
I don't want to leave this meeting. but-
No offense to anyone. I'm just generally terrified of speaking.
Good. Happy birthday
But
again.
yeah,
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you.
birthday. Akshara.
Happy birthday.
thank you. Yes, thanks for having us. This was really awesome.
Yeah, this was really awesome.